Welcome to the panel that is called Democratizing Energy, Awareness to Action. This panel is brought to you by the Estonian Green Movement. And one of the ways to organize energy production democratically is to create an energy cooperative, or sometimes called energy community. This format is becoming globally more and more popular as we speak, but it's still rather new here in Estonia. So that is why you will hear the term energy community quite a lot during the discussion, and we will hopefully reach towards some intellectual realizations and inspiration for further action. My name is Karin Kruup. I come from Tallinn University of Technology and the Good Deed Foundation. And I'm the moderator of today's discussion, as you have probably all figured out already. But it's now time to give spotlight to our wonderful panelists here who are from Estonia and abroad. So we have here Märt and Joosep and Anelia, who's from Italy, broadcasted here virtually. So I ask you to introduce yourselves, just say a little bit, and just say a few words. How do you relate to the topic of energy democratization? So maybe let's start with the people who are here in this room physically.
Hello everybody, my name is Masso. Currently I'm working for Estonian Foresight Center, that is I think that Estonian Parliament, and basically our proposal is to do this kind of foresight and forecasting. So basically we are looking far into the future and figuring out how the society and economy is developing. And during some couple of past years, some of the research topics that we are focused on have been related to energy and green energy, and especially during the last year we had one research project that focused on electric energy presuming, active consumption, demand response, and in this regard we also a bit studied or paid attention to the question of democratizing energy production and energy communities. That's the background.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Joosep Veerme. I am leading the first energy community, official energy community in Estonia, where we are trying to engage locals and workshop them towards a better understanding what an energy community means and how they could be a part of coexisting and co-producing. And then I'm also connected to European projects. So I'm a colleague with Karin in Taltech, where generally the same topic runs on the background. So talking to the locals, trying to resolve regulatory issues, and maybe give some advice to both the locals and the public authority. And then there's another project which is more of a low-scale, directed to one energy community, where I do my best to be the facilitator and the consultant for them. Thanks.
Thank you. Anelia, your turn to introduce yourself.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm sorry not to be with you in Estonia, in beautiful Estonia. So my name is Anelia. It was presented. I'm in my professional life, I'm a strategic area leader on energy transformation at CEE Bankwatch network. It's one of the biggest groups of environmental group networks across Central and East Europe, which has one of the primary goals to promote energy democracy. So energy transition, energy transformation of our society is part of our key objectives, and since 2 years we work on promoting energy communities together with RESCOP, which is the Association of Energy Cooperatives across Europe. But in my personal life, I try to practice what I preach, basically. So since 2 years I'm a president of an energy cooperative in my local community, which is in fact going through the process of establishment of community, of developing exchange between families and producing an exchange of energy between families. So I'll be happy to share more of my experience here in Italy.
Thank you very much. So today's discussion is divided into two parts. First, we're going to have a broad discussion together with the panelists, and then you in the audience can have a few questions to us all. But before we start the discussion, I want to measure the temperature a little bit of how familiar you are with a few topics. So what I mean by measuring of temperature, so basically if you raise your hand very high, it means it's very high temperature, and if your hand is very low, it's very low temperature. So please raise your hands if you are familiar with the topic of energy communities. Okay, I can see that most of you are quite familiar. The second question is, how familiar are you with like the energy sector in general? So very high is like you're an educated expert, very low is like I'm a consumer awareness. Okay, I can see. And the final one is, how familiar are you with community initiatives, community building, community organization? Okay, I can see we can go pretty deep with these people. But we have people watching us online, so we still have to start with a few of the basic questions just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So the first question to all of you panelists is why we talk about energy cooperatives and energy communities when it comes to energy democratization.
Everybody's looking at me. Why we talk about energy communities, I think the main factor is that they are democratic organizations. The idea behind them is doing something together, but in a way that everybody wants to do it. What's very clear that from our side, but what the locals don't often understand is that in an energy community, everybody has the goal is to have one vote per person, not like a limited company where you can have different shares. So I think doing something together, having an equal vote, and trying to resolve some, development mission together is why we're talking about those.
Also regarding the mission, one key point is that the function of communities has changed in the sense that, for instance, in the 19th century, at the beginning of the 20th century, when actually the first energy communities emerged, like communities started to produce hydro energy or wind energy, the proposal was that there wasn't this kind of central energy producers, and the most easy way or the easy access to electric energy was to somehow produce it in the community or with the members of the community. So during the 20th century we had this kind of centralization of energy production. Now we have new opportunities to increase the distributed energy production, and energy communities in this development have a number of specific functions. For instance, one of the things is that energy communities could produce energy security. Energy security in the sense that, for instance, when the climate is changing and there will be much more this kind of bad weather or rough weather, and centralized energy production or centralized energy distribution isn't reliable, then energy communities can take the spot and provide energy in this kind of crisis. And also, for instance, everybody knows what's going on in very many parts of the world, including Ukraine, where the war has shown that distributed energy is something that makes possible for communities to keep on going and doing their stuff. So it's like this is one of the existential functions that energy communities have. Yeah.
Anelia, do you have anything to add to the first question?
I think there was a great explanation from previous speakers. Just to outline that with energy communities you have systemic change which is produced in two systems. One is the energy system, which was explained by Märt, that so far we had always the type of pyramid where we have few producers and many consumers. With this approach we're trying to reverse the energy system where you have more producers and they're connected and they manage their supply and consumption at the local scale, at small scale, which was a different approach than when the energy systems of today was planned years and decades ago. So we are changing. This is a type of innovation which is very important. And then you have a social innovation, the social innovation where communities organizing between themselves to share and to decide together about the needs and how the distribution is made. So this is another type of innovation why it's so important that we give more opportunities and more support for energy communities type of initiatives.
Mm-hmm. If you say energy cooperative, does it always mean the same thing? Are they all non-profits? Do they all produce energy in a distributed manner? Or are there some kind of differentiations between?
Oh, it's a really wide topic. Energy communities, I mean, when we talk about energy communities in general, we talk about PV panels or saving energy together, because these are the most reachable topics to everyone. But energy communities can be co-producing, co-saving, or they can be, being a part of something bigger, like maybe some larger developments and having a part of that, or energy communities. There are millions of ways how to describe them. I will finish my answer in a second, but so energy communities should answer to one question, which is the state of local development. So the goal of the energy communities should support local development. Maybe one example would be from the Estonian case that since our public sector tends to switch lanes a lot, so with the new government come new perspectives and new plans. We don't have this kind of a committed 20-year plan. Then I would say for an energy community to do something together, one of the aims could be to remove the unknown from their energy prices, for example. But yeah, I mean, there are different ways. I can keep on blabbering about that.
Yeah, others can add.
One way to elaborate is that there is, debate whether we have any energy community in Estonia. For instance, some people claim that there is none. Some people claim that there is one or two. The other side of the story is that, for instance, there are, or at least 2 years ago, there was about 400 different NGOs or non-governmental organizations or non-profit organizations that were producing electric energy to the grid. And basically, and big chunk of them, or most of them, were apartment associations or cooperatives. So basically, we can claim that, and also statistics tells that about 20% or 25% of legal persons that are prosumers in the sense that they are producing energy to the grid, are actually this kind of NGOs or non-profit organizations, and definitely they are cooperatives, or they are people willingly have come together to produce energy for themselves and for the grid, and so in this regard it's quite extensively developed, and it also shows that there is a diversity.
Okay, Anelia, what are the trends in other parts of the Europe? that you know of? Like, how is energy community defined? How would you describe a good energy community?
The European level legislation, which was adopted 2019, was very clear on the fact that it need to be indeed local level actors organized in a democratic way, and that it's indeed not aimed at for profit production, but really for distributing the benefits at local level. But it very much depends on member states to member states how they then translate and produce legislation in different countries. To regulate a creation of energy communities. I mean, I could speak about Italy, where fortunately this was translated in the national legislation, saying that energy communities could not be profit-making, which basically limits the speculation to some extent and use for the incentives which are given by the state for energy community, for virtual exchange of energy between the members of the community, to the genuine type of communities or municipalities or citizens or small scale enterprises which comes together and decide to create a local level association or cooperative. We have different forms. But indeed, the fact that it could not be profit, it's important. It was important aspect of the way the transposition was done. And another limitation which was put in the Italian legislation is that even there will be the corporations part of the cooperative, the benefits they could get in terms of like reducing the abuse could be maximum 40% of the income of the community. So it means that a lot of the income should be reinvested at local level. And for example, our energy community even went one step further. We are called Solidarity Energy Community because we decided that 20% of our overturn of the energy produced and exchange and incentives which we receive from the energy market would be given to the energy poor people, so people which could not afford energy services. So indeed, this type of limitations and this type of translation of the legislation of European legislation help to really launch also progressive thinking. And indeed, in my region, which is around 5 million people, probably similar size like Estonia, we have currently around 100 energy cooperatives registered. And already more than around 20 of them are solidarity energy cooperatives, meaning the cooperatives which decided to be even to go one step further, not only to be non-profit, but also to invest in redistribution of the benefits to the people which are not able to afford.
Okay, so I understand that it makes a big difference how the country regulates energy communities, and this can vary quite a lot from country to country. And as I know, in Estonia, it hasn't been decided yet what the energy community means exactly. So we are in a very important moment to do the preparations and to analyze the situation to make sure the right kind of regulations are set in place when the time comes. But okay, before we jump into the regulations and policy making, let's just cover a few more basic things. When we have more energy communities in our society, what are the benefits, like social benefits, environmental benefits, economic benefits to our society?
I mean, from Anelia's last explanation, this is kind of a pipe dream for us, I think, at the moment, to have a situation like that you have there in Italy. Now, coming to the topic, then, what can be gained? Märt has already mentioned energy security. Then, of course, I'm coming back to the topic of local development. Then Anelia has mentioned energy poverty. And in a national view, I personally believe that energy communities, especially in a state that's so small than that Estonia, in addition to the energy security, we can also kind of help to stabilize the general grid that will be handling a lot of pressure in the near future, thanks to add-on electric cars. I mean, it's a nice topic, and it's nice to talk about. If I'm going really specific, it's nice to talk about smart charging and smart systems. But what we have to realize is that smart systems all think the same. You know, electric car is a good example because they consume a lot of energy, and if every smart charger in Estonia thinks that I will start charging from 2 a.m. until 7 in the morning, then the grid capacity is at a risk. So contributing to the Estonian grid would be the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, go ahead with all of the technical details, because we have quite an aware audience today, so you can go to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, I would just add two other things. One other thing is democracy, because democracy is not about elections. Democracy is something that we have to act in everyday things, and this kind of producing energy and distributing energy is one practical way to actually make the civil society work and make the democracy work. Basically, definitely there are a number of other fields where we can be active citizens. Like for instance, in Estonia we have quite active choir music groups and national dance groups and this kind of things that keep our culture alive. But at the same time, when we are talking about electrifying or the importance of electricity and energy system is constantly increasing, and it also pretty much relates to what is the role of communities or everyday households or what else in this kind of electrification. So basically this is one way to be active in this crucial part of economy or society in general. And it also helps us, it definitely helps in building civic society and building democratic society. And another thing is that it's not that many or oftentimes mentioned is demand response. So basically the thing is that electric energy system is tricky in the sense that there must be balance of production and consumption and supply and demand. And when we are producing energy from wind and solar, it increases the chance or the risk that the system is not balanced. But at the same time, we know that there is a solution. That's technical term is demand response. So basically, consumers are able to increase or decrease their demand for energy, and prosumers in general, and also collective prosumers like community energy could play a crucial role in demand response. For instance, in our analysis, we forecasted that in 10 years, basically the demand response capacity of Estonian system is like 400 million watts, and of this, around 175 watts, big chunk, almost half of it,
So
is something that could energy prosumers cover. So basically, when they are producing energy to the grid or producing energy to the storage systems, and then later on inject into the system, it helps to make the demand response and basically make the demand and supply of the energy balance, and that's very crucial thing in the future.
So by demand response, to put it very simply, it basically means when the sun is shining, you put on the dishwasher or something like that, or how does it work?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, charge your car.
Yeah.
Okay, do all the jobs. Okay, and when people are better educated of where the electricity comes from, and you can basically develop your intuition of the numbers, then you understand that, oh, if I need energy, then I should do it on some certain times.
Yeah, exactly. And also, yeah, it's already, for instance, in this January, we had a very high prices, very high energy prices, of electric energy prices, and in those hours where the energy was very high, basically prosumers, active prosumers, were so much more changing their consumption and postponing their consumption compared to passive households or individuals. So this kind of energy collective or individual prosuming and energy communities could play a crucial role there.
Anelia, do you have any other benefits to add that were not mentioned yet?
Yeah, I think indeed Matt was very good at outlining indeed the balancing system approach of the that energy communities has to the grid. Indeed, we already practiced this with our energy community where our primary goal is educating all our members what energy consumption mean, what is the one megawatt production of energy, what is their consumption, which hours of the day they mainly use energy, so how you could change their habits. And there are studies at EU level which also shows that overall environmental benefit of energy communities is that you also make saving. Most of the time you have an improving in the reduction of energy consumption, although you might be producing your own energy, but this do not motivate you only to produce more, to consume more, but rather to indeed to be more cautious about how you consume, and definitely you make savings, and also you allow that the system indeed. Even though this virtual consumption is virtual between the people at the local level, we are reducing the pressure of the national grid, and indeed, hopefully, this would diminish the need of gas. For example, Italy also produces more than 40% of its energy from gas, which mainly comes from Russia. So this is one of the reasons, also one of the main environmental reasons why we get together for energy communities. But there is also a very important social aspect. I mentioned energy poverty, which is one of our primary goals, but it's part of the solidarity which we are normally giving to our members, the people which might not have enough means to pay their bills. But another type of solidarity is that, for example, we put together the community plans. We put together, everybody is investing in the amount of they have or they could afford into making community installations. It could be windmill, or in our case, it's solar power plant, just because it's more easy and more cheap at this moment in Italy. Also, it's very good return rate. So yeah, this is also part of solidarity, because every of our member was contributing with what they have. So it makes much more accessible for many people to really have ownership in a solar panel, because it might be cheaper, but still it's not affordable for many people to have access to the renewable energy. Mm-hmm. So this is the part of the solidarity, and the last but not least, obviously you have economic benefits for the community itself, because we estimated that you'll be able to repay our investment in around 7-8 years. And after that, we would have, our community panels would be producing energy, and all the benefit which comes from that would be reinvested into other type of services, and why not connected to the mobility or to the heating, to reducing our footprint overall, because indeed energy communities have much more bigger scope than just energy production. According to the EU legislation, you could have a lot of energy services which are provided through the energy community. So our dream is indeed, once we repay our initial investments, or when we come to the new opportunities for good common initiatives, we could use the income which is created through the energy community to provide to reinvest in the local development in other social projects.
Mm-hmm. Can I add or summarize one topic? What I've seen from the workshop so far, energy communities. When we're talking about citizens or the general public in general, then people don't understand electricity in general. They don't. If I ask someone which are the main consumers in a kitchen, then it's a simple logic that everything that generates heat is consuming more, but nobody knows about that. And even if they know, they don't know what's the consumption difference between a 40-watt light bulb and, let's say, an oven. So addressing the energy awareness and education, I think in general, in a social pan, also contributes really heavily to the national energy savings. That's my view of things. But
Is it so?
It's definitely so, but it also points to the main challenge of this kind of active consuming and producing, because usually the electricity bill is, the share of electricity bill in household budget is quite small usually. And this is also the reason why the number of households or persons that for instance change their electricity consumption in the periods where the electricity price is high is very small. So basically, I don't know, some years ago during the very high electricity prices where the electricity was like, I don't know, more than 1,000 euros per megawatt, only less or about 2% of households decreased their energy consumption. This January it was already like 10%, but it's 10% of households, but it's still very not very many individuals or households actually react to those kind of high prices. Mm-hmm. So basically the challenge is that there has to be some other motivational factor in addition to this kind of economic factors or price factors that could make the active consumption and active participation in energy communities happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can continue with the challenges, because first we talked about all of the benefits and it sounded so wonderful to have, like, let's have all energy communities and all our problems will be solved. But is it really so? So you started, Joosep, with the technical side of things, like how easy it is to really accommodate the change of the energy infrastructure to have more energy communities.
Yeah, that's a hot topic, definitely. I mean, when we look at, I don't know how long, Anelia, your energy communities in Italy have been flourishing, but we are quite new in Estonia to the concept. We do have a lot of social, frowning on the topic because of our heritage, the Soviet Union heritage, and then doing things together was pressed on you from the government, and that's a huge barrier that we're trying to break here in Estonia. In the technical side, I think it's okay. I mean, there are technical solutions that can be researched or bought with capital and whatever. So I'm not worried about that. But we are mainly dealing with social factors and also legislative factors. Because in the Estonian regulation by now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is the concept of energy communities kind of defined. So basically an apartment, what's it called now?
Apartment union?
Apartment union, yeah. Apartment union can act as a energy community without making any big amendments or creating a new non-profit to the side. But that's everything that we have at the moment. We've been working on, together with the climate ministry, we've been working on the energy, Estonian energy economy development plan 2035, which kind of segues into getting more regulations and getting everything done from the legislative part towards encouraging people to start energy communities. But it's a gray area in general here in Estonia at the moment. And I think, or what I've heard from the locals, the main issue lies, we have energy communities in Estonia, I don't know, maybe 30, maybe 40, but they are not registered, they are not official in any way. They are, I would call them makeshift projects. And the reason behind that it's not enabled by the regulatory framework, meaning that if an energy community really wants to become official and wants to become recognized, they don't have any benefits on doing that. The only thing that they will get is a lot of bureaucracy. So people do something, they don't talk about it, they do something locally, but to raise the general awareness and encourage people to do more, then we do have to deal with the regulation, and that's what we are actually contributing at the moment. We're trying to contribute at the moment too.
So what would be the first steps to make it easier for the people?
I think that that's the one of the challenges, that there is no consensus, I would say, whether there is something missing from the policy side. That means, for instance, our policy is quite passive currently, in the sense that definitely we have adopted the European directives. That includes that we define energy community and sustainable energy communities and whatnot, but definitely it's kind of passive regulation. There are not that many active interventions or stimulus for energy communities. But then again, the question emerges whether there is actually anything missing, in the sense that, for instance, 10 years ago, probably there wasn't any discussion on energy communities. 10 years ago, maybe the first or the first distributed energy producers or energy prosumers emerged, for instance. So basically, during the last decade, we have had this kind of exponential growth of prosumers, and that includes that during the last 5 years, the growth rate of energy communities has been very, very rapid. And all those, so basically in this legal environment, in this socio-economic environment, we have seen the rapid growth, and also the scenarios that have been developed or forecasts that have been made. We basically foresee that during the next decade we will see 4 times growth in prosuming. That includes, for instance, probably that includes also collective forms of prosuming and energy communities and other this kind of collective forms of energy producing and distribution and whatnot. So basically, despite the regulation, we will see quite a rapid growth, I could argue. Mm-hmm. But then again, definitely, for instance, when we are looking into our policy, there are a number of things missing that are, for instance, in Italy, like economic incentives, tariff system, energy distribution tariff system is different in Italy, and some other things. So yeah, that's the thing that we have to figure out what kind of policy incentives are needed to reach there.
If you take this perspective that we want to avoid some big mistakes when it comes to making regulations for Estonia, then what are the mistakes that we definitely need to avoid, that we already know is not a good idea? And maybe Anelia can help us, because I think she has a lot of experience in knowing like what could be the bad regulation. But what do you think? Or we should just ask Anelia.
Yeah, I mean, I can go on and start that we have to make some mistakes. I mean, it's super hard to learn from others' mistakes, and then, like I think it was in the beginning of the year or end of the last year, where I found out about Germany and their apartment complex renovation topic that they introduced a new regulation that all the renovations have to include PV panels, which resulted in a grid crisis, and which resulted in the fact that they wrote in the regulation to also have batteries with the PV parks to avoid. So they made the mistake. They are correcting. So when we are talking about, generating energy as an energy community, if it's an apartment complex or farms or houses next to each other, then we already need to start thinking about batteries. And I agree with Märt that we are at the moment on a tipping point or a turning point in energy communities, and I do think that we have some examples, but we need to generate more examples, because not only my experience in Estonia, but others' experience as well has been that you have to do something, maybe against the wind or against the grain or against the regulation a little bit. And if it's successful, then you can retroactively change things to accommodate that. And that will kind of probably lay the bricks on where we can build the sector in the future.
One concrete example of mistake that we should avoid is introducing general and generous economic incentives to energy communities in particular, or for prosumers in general, because the economic context is that, for instance, in 10 years we have seen that solar panels or photovoltaic solar panels, the price of the panels has decreased like 8 or 9 times. The price of energy storage systems have decreased 5 times. Looking into the future, basically all the forecasts show that the price will decrease. So it's very difficult to argue that some kind of economic incentives are needed to have the decrease in this kind of distributed energy production. Probably there are other things missing, and one of the things, for instance, at least in Estonian case, is how we will build this kind of energy grid and make the energy grid more supportive of this kind of energy communities, for instance, and for prosumers. And maybe this kind of things might need some kind of interventions or investment supports.
I will have a comment on Märt. I'm not entirely opposing, but I agree that incentives like money on the table, let's say, they are not needed. But when we talk about enablers, then one maybe good option would be to look towards the grid fees within the energy community, within energy sharing, stuff like that, small things. Because in Estonia, when you look at the energy bill, then about half of the bill is energy fees, grid fees. And another, maybe just a comment that you don't have to give a lot, and you don't have to create a huge deficit in the Estonian budget to promote energy communities, because in general, I've been in sales and business development for over 10 years, and oftentimes it's for groups of people or citizens or people in general, they want to know that they have won. So you can sell something with a higher sticker price, but give a small discount, and it will make the people happy. So I don't know if it was a good example, but yeah, maybe if you're buying and selling something, then there's a saying that both of the parties have to be a little bit sad, a little bit, sad about the seller giving it away too cheaply and the buyer buying it a bit too expensively. So this is kind of the balancing point, I think.
Yeah, and in this regard also targeting is crucial. For instance, we already mentioned that energy communities could be one solution to energy poverty. And so basically there are communities or segments of society that are much more in risk of energy poverty, and some kind of redistribution or incentives for them to be able to access the grid or produce to the grid or what else might be much more effective in the large scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. Anelia, do you have any mistakes that you recommend us not to make here in Estonia?
I mean, on the last discussion on incentives, I think one thing which I would be slightly disagree with the previous speaker is that incentives indeed for me are needed, and it's a bit of mistake that in Estonia didn't allocate it at all any of cohesion or recovery funding for making incentives for energy communities. I mean, this is one of the few countries, by the way, in according to our tracking of the in Central and East Europe, that indeed didn't thought about providing some investment scheme, investment incentives, and these incentives could be very carefully studied, and it's not necessary to be indeed for everybody. Example I had also from Italy was that we had, for example, cohesion funds incentives for feasibility study development in my region, which had very progressive selection criteria. So it was cooperatives which had more social aspects, gender aspects, or are including indeed different type of stakeholders into their the community network, which also mean this enhancing this social innovation was having more points and more opportunity to get this financing for feasibility studies. So it's preparation phase, which is very important, and sometimes it's really it takes a lot of time. I mean, like there was a previous question, how long we are running. I mean, we established our cooperative a year and a half ago. We made our first installation 2 months ago. So it's really takes a time to bring people on board, educate them about energy, also to prepare the analysis and make economic analysis of what you do together and really build a trust, because you mentioned before, I mean, building a trust is a crucial thing for Central and East Europe, but also for Italy. I mean, people need to know that the thing which they get they get on board is something which they could trust, and they could, if they put their money in that, which would take, it will be investment for 10, 20 years, they need to trust people which they have around. So it's really a process which often is difficult to measure in economic term, and having some incentives from the state or from the cohesion funds, as in this case, was essential to kick off many of the energy communities, to make it much more massive across my region. So I think this is one thing which definitely need to be corrected. I hope with the revision of the cohesion and recovery plans, which is sometime next year, you'll be able still to provide and ask for proper incentives, which could be for preparation, could be for indeed affordability for people which are not having access to energy services. Really give them opportunity to increase access to green investments, and or it could be about monitoring and evaluation. But I think these are type of initiatives which need the public support. It's difficult that it will be left to the market, and otherwise it will be too slow that we will make the change and the democratization of the energy system we want.
Just to add, if I remember it correctly, it was also the experience of the Netherlands and Denmark that basically what emerging energy communities struggle with is not finding the businesses that actually provide solar panels or inverters or other technical solutions. There is a lot of businesses. There is the market. What is missing from the market is actual consultation and help in designing the technical solution and business case for actual communities. And this is the service that energy consultancy firms so far haven't been able to design or provide, or there is no market incentives for them to provide. And definitely it's also the case in Estonia. We don't have this kind of energy consultancy firms that would provide this kind of consultancy service. And basically, yeah, this is this kind of service and making this kind of service accessible and so to speak cheap for the energy communities could help in emergency.
Yeah, this is actually something that we in the European projects are trying to create, this kind of a one-stop shop concept. But yeah, coming back to Anelia's statement, then the incentives, if we're talking about money on the table, incentives, of course we need preparation, but if we're talking about concrete monetary incentives, then I think it needs to be really well thought through, because we do have a lot of very innovative business people in Estonia who will probably try to snatch the money that's provided to their, let's say, initiatives or well-beings, which are not in the end energy communities. And we know that energy communities, or I personally know that we are not the fastest in moving forward, because we are, democratic. We have to elect and do stuff internally in order to move on. So I think in the longer run, we do have to have monetary incentives as well, but we need to really think them through so that the money doesn't go into the wrong hands. Because I'm not going to elaborate more, but we about 15 years ago or 10 years ago, when the government was providing money for PV parks, then a lot of the money was actually snatched up from people who definitely aren't energy poor, nor poor.
Yeah.
So
the question of equality should be considered when we think about creating legislation and policy for the Estonian context.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's very dangerous that you create wrong incentives. We monitor some examples, like in Spain, the recovery funds, 50% indeed went for big energy companies, but it was partially due to the legislation, which is indeed, I said, is allowing this, is having these gaps, and then also the way how the selection criteria are designed. So we need to be very, indeed, I think it's worth to go slower and wise of distributing the funds, and not to create a wrong market or wrong incentive. Then also because it's create mistrusted people. I think it's important that we maintain the right dimension and the right approach when we speak about energy communities, because of democratization process, which was taught through the EU legislation when it was put in place.
I know, Karin, you want to go on, but I have one more comment.
Go ahead.
One of the projects, or Taltech project that I'm involved in, and then one other project from Tartu University. Our project is called Life Comet, and the other one is, I think it was Easy for Rural. So for these two projects, we have held 12 seminars in the first half of the year in different local governments, and I was really positively surprised by one local government who actually invited us back in spring. Of course, we will have continuous educational seminars about how to build energy communities and tackling the hurdles with the local government people and the locals. But they invited us back to think about how they can funnel the money received from I don't know how it's in English, but it's like wind turbine compensation. I will explain it later for you, Anelia. But how to funnel the money towards the creation of energy communities in their local municipality, which is a really good way. And yeah, wind turbine compensation is an X amount of money calculated that will be received in the municipalities where wind turbines are built, and 50% will go to the locals and 50% will go to the local governments, and they have a free hand to do anything with it. And this local government wants to funnel it towards energy communities, which is a really good sign.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if anyone of you participants want to ask something, then you can now join in and we will hand you the mic if you have any questions. So we will just continue the discussion, but you're now also part of it more actively if you wish. So yeah, just raise your hand if you want to ask anything.
Yes, thank you. A very interesting discussion. I'm Bart. I'm the founder of the Estonian Dialogue Academy. I'm not from Estonia. I'm from the Netherlands, and I was just looking up some numbers. In Holland, there are now over 200 energy corporations, and they produce something like 50,000 energy for 50,000 households. It's not all a bright picture, because at the moment, I think in the Netherlands, households have to pay to bring the electricity that they produce themselves to the grid, because the grid is overloaded. But I'm interested in this aspect that you were talking about, working with local communities, working in a democratic way, and you explained some of the Estonian history in relation to the notion of communities and why that can be difficult. What do you think then, if this can grow, these energy communities, what is the best argument that you have to say to Estonian people that are used to solve their issues by themselves, which has its charm, of course, very much. My wife is Estonian. But what can happen in the coming years that it maybe will grow, and also grow maybe from energy community to energy cooperation, and then it actually becomes like a legal force against the free market in Estonia, where you have to look up at the ERR website when you have to put on your refrigerator, your washing machine, to know when you're not robbing yourself, so to say.
Perfect. There are many questions, so if somebody forgets to answer some of them, then jump in and remind what was the question, what was unanswered. But do you want to explain?
Yeah, I can go ahead. One of my co-panelists yesterday said a very nice thing that which is not related to the topic, but he said that even if my brain jams up, then my mouth keeps going. I usually need some time to think and analyze, but I will try to answer fast. It was a really well built up question, complex one. So incentivizing, at the moment we are trying to locate with every community, every municipality, we are trying to locate their weak point together with them and let them define the weak point and try to find a solution together. And from that we will kind of find the motto for their community action. But this week, actually on Wednesday, I had a really nice. It's been a very panel-y week. I was moderating a panel where we had one member from a really active local community in Hiiumaa, Then we had one person from the Energy Climate Ministry, one person from the Estonian Towns and Municipalities Association, and then one guy who basically is a single man energy community operation, which it's quite nice. It's called Tikupoiss. I don't know if you know. It's halfway to Tartu. So they have a gas station, energy production, a wind turbine, solar panels, batteries, and EV charging. And they are planning to provide some for the industry next door and the locals and so on. So we had an interesting discussion there, and it was the first time where, without me incentivizing, I heard from every member of the panel, I heard the word energy security, which is now, this topic is heating up. It doesn't only mean, the worst. It also means branches falling over your tree, or it kind of involves energy poverty as well. So I would say energy security would be a really hot topic in Estonia, and this is something that people need to realize, that energy security, even if you are living in a perfect environment, it still might affect you, and be a great motivator. And of course, I mean, Estonians, adding to your statement about Estonians, how we like to do things, resolve things ourselves, then the first question that most of us ask is, what's the return of investment? And this is a topic that's a little bit harder to explain, that the return of investment is being in charge of your own energy saving or energy production in 15 years.
Yeah, just something to add. Basically, this is the question: how in the context that individual electricity prosumers have grown exponentially, we have seen very rapid growth. So the question is how to motivate those active prosumers to cooperate. And this is the challenge, because also in Estonia, for instance, we have villages where people are very cooperative. They are doing so many things together. And when it comes to producing energy, they are very active in discussing all those things together, like sharing the experience, sharing the know-how. But when it goes to actually installing the panels, they are doing it individually. But then again, when we are looking into the future, I can see two business cases emerging. One of them is energy storage. So basically, currently the energy storage systems are quite expensive, and basically it could be foreseen that doing this kind of energy storage systems together with different households could be one stimulus for this kind of legal cooperation, in the sense that those prosumers or individuals come together and start producing and storing and managing the demand and supply of the energy together. And the other thing is that the question of grid access. So basically, during the last, 5 years or 10 years, it has been very easy to sell the energy to the grid. And when we are looking into the future, it's much more easier to foresee that, for instance, in local governments, the local government organizations, whether it be school or kindergarten or what else, some kind of gym or what else, they need energy, and this kind of local energy producers via microgrids and new grid solutions could sell the energy not to the big grid but to the local grid. And this also makes it much more or increases the necessity of the local households or businesses to come together and figure out how to produce and store the energy and provide it to the local government organizations. And those two things are, in my mind, those business cases that will increase the collective action or cooperative energy production and consumption.
So I heard also from the question that there was this like social aspect or the like human emotional aspect, because when we talk about energy communities, like there's a community, the words, you have to speak to others, and it sounds like a hustle, or like I'm used to thinking of this topic a bit of problematic sometimes, or many people consider this problematic. So is it the main reason or one of the main reasons why we don't have more energy communities, or why someone would not want to join, even though when they're sharing the topics, they have the panels, they want to do the investment, but they don't want to do it together, like they don't want to be legally binded together?
I think I have a good comment on that, but I will start off with the unofficial social distancing rules that are in our DNA for Estonians and Finns. Recently, just at the Coldplay concert in Helsinki, and we were on the floor, and midway through the concert, we thought that we would try to press towards the front of the stage, and we basically just walked there. Everybody was like partying and having a good time, but there wasn't even a chance that I would step on someone's heels. But talking about socializing, I think it's getting better, and even locals, old school locals. I do have a lot of contact with them through the workshops and so on. They like to do things together in a sense, but then they also tend to like to talk behind everyone's back. It's not a bad thing. I wouldn't categorize it as a bad thing, but what I'm trying to segue into is the newer generation. I just checked the generations today, but from 1997, I think it's the Zoomers, Gen Z. And I have some friends from that generation, and what I see a lot compared to my millennial generation is that they tend to do a lot of things together. They tend to share a lot. They don't have these. They have less capitalism-derived goals in their life, and they are organically kind of moving towards this more unified community and world. And it's not a Miss Universe speech now, but it sounds like it. So they are moving towards that, and it's coming organically, whereas the millennial generation, and not talking about the generations before, it's harder for us. And where it comes from, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it's something related to the IT thing, that they have been communicating with each other 24/7 through iPads when they were small and so on.
So before we continue with the same question, I want to ask the same question from the audience as well. So let's measure the temperature. Raise your hand very high if dealing with communities as a very much of a hustle, like a painful hustle. And if you find it easy, no problem, then just keep your hand unraised. So, and also you in the panel, I want to see your hand as well. So where are you standing? Okay, we can see. We have to continue answering the question. I would love to hear from Anelia. You have many years of experience with energy communities. Maybe you can elaborate on the hustling part of the community work.
Yeah, I think indeed cultural aspects of each country are different. So indeed, the incentives you could find or how to motivate people is different, but it's not easier. Definitely, I mean, in different countries, obviously, you have different approach, but it's overall working with your neighbor or working with younger generations. I mean, Joosep had very good distinguish between the different generations. So it's definitely more and more challenging with the young generation to do a common work or community work. I think in my cooperative, many of our members are probably 50 plus, which is to some extent I find it very logical because I mean we have a demographic issue in Italy that less and less kids are born, and indeed that our age, let's say 50 plus, is the most wealthy and most also from the other side most the biggest part of the society at this moment, and also the one which also should think about the future generation. So in fact that we took a decision to be together, to do the things together. I think sometimes was seen as a negative, but I see it as a positive also. I mean, looking at bringing people together to do to decide to make a common project and invest time, because it's really a lot of time and energy, is very important. I think it's worth to think also that how you maintain that interest, how you maintain the trust I was speaking of before. For example, we do a lot of common work together. I mean, like when we was preparing the ground for our first solar panel, we installed it in an old farm. So there was a lot of preparatory work in terms of cleaning the place, painting the structure, and so on. So which we did it on our own, also to reduce the cost of the investment. But this was one of the most beautiful things, where you see that people like to stay together, like to exchange things, stories, food, and also to give or to provide the work voluntary. So it's my generation probably, but I don't say that it's not. I think it's more a human need, which probably it's not so familiar to the younger generations, simply because they didn't experience it so much. So having some opportunities for them to go through the work which they donate or voluntarily do things for the community is quite important. It's less and less in nowadays, unfortunately. But when they go through this experience, I think they certainly have then the good feeling and the see what is the benefit of that. So investing in community is a constant job, as like it was said before. The democracy, it's the real democracy, which need to be day by day practice. Otherwise, it's if you leave it for time, it couldn't. Yeah, I mean, the democracy could not go in vacation. I mean, we need to really every day think about informing people, being transparent to them, engaging them in what you do. This is the biggest social innovation I think we have to go in our society, because probably neoliberal approach we are more and more experienced in Central and East Europe in the last 25 years is making people really relying on too much on the market, where we are clear that on market we could not get all the solutions and services which we need. So we need to have a revival a bit of the thinking that communities should take part of the services and demands we have at local level, and it's most sustainable way and the most also economically viable way sometimes, and sometimes also socially most beneficial for people because they feel better. And so I mean, yeah, sorry to be philosophical about it, but indeed I live in Italy. I'm Bulgarian by origin, so I'm very much relate with you on the history of the communistic regimes and the fact and how much people are hesitant sometimes to do things together. But in the same time, when they start to do, and now the younger generations which haven't been through the past, through the communistic time, they could do this practice by themselves without really have a prejudice, without have a bad experience from the past. So certainly they could discover the good side of having a community work.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience? There's one hand.
Hi, my name is Maris. I represent the Estonian Green Movement. I'm very passionate on the topic of energy communities, so I'm really happy that this panel takes place. I absolutely have enjoyed the conversation so far, and I think it's also important that we've had some moments of disagreements when it comes to finding the right incentives, because we need those discussions more in the society, I feel, and oftentimes the truth lies somewhere in between, so we have to have as many positions on the table as possible. And my question actually has to do with barriers, which we've already touched upon, so I hope the question is not going to be completely repetitive, but it's inspired by Anelia's fact on her region in Italy that has the number of energy communities is around 100, and Joosep's comment on this would be an absolute dream, so maybe thinking a bit more in terms of utopian dream scenarios, 5, 15, 25 years maybe in Estonian context. What would be the main, let's say 3 to 5, or how many you find main things that would need to change to enable a shift towards a more utopian energy system that is more decentralized, more energy secure, etc., etc. We would have lots of flourishing energy communities. So it can be both easy fixes and low-hanging fruits, but also if you dare think about some more utopian reforms that would need to take place for this to happen. Just this lovely utopian exercise. Thank you very much in advance.
Thanks for the question. So 2 really good questions from the audience already. Yeah. So yesterday I had to explain. Yesterday the last question was what does the utopian green energy Estonia look like in 2035 or something like that. Now I have to explain how to get there. Yeah, it's tough.
Awareness raising.
Well, yeah, but this is, I mean, it's quite soft. Of course, we need to do that, and Karin is right that this is the kind of the first step. But I can continue by saying that some regulatory improvements, but this is also so generic. I'm trying to come up with something really
a wicked
innovative.
solution.
Yeah, exactly.
Just now, quickly.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
No pressure.
I mean, some developments from the DSO of Estonia. So I don't know, Anelia, if you know or not. Now it's a dialogue. that in Estonia, as also some other Eastern Bloc European countries, the main DSO actually owns, like, I think 97 or 6 or something % of the whole network. So we have one national DSO and that's it. So improvements from their sides would be really nice. We have some local networks as well, but they are municipality based. And more availability to the grid, which is a problem across Europe. Also a generic answer. Maybe for the energy developers to engage more locals would be a nice thing to do. And for locals to be really active and then create. I would love to see, in let's say 15 years, I would love to see that Estonia is composed of these small energy islands. How to get there? we have to set an example, and I think the rest will follow, maybe.
Beautiful answer.
Frankly speaking, I'm also quite optimistic in the sense that there's no need to some kind of dramatic change or what else, because I have much more impression that we have already stepped on the pathway that will lead us to the future where there are a number of cooperative forms of energy production and consumption. Then again, for instance, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, so we had this kind of energy crisis, and the prices of the energy increased very rapidly, and it triggered much of the change that we have seen during the last couple of years. So basically, in case we will have this kind of another crisis, it will help us in the sense that it will rapidly increase the motivation to produce energy in distributed way and do cooperation regarding that. But actually, it's not something that we want, in the sense that other things in the economy will not develop them very well. Regarding what's in the large scheme of things, there are two things that I'm expecting that are crucial. One of them is access to grid. For instance, in European Parliament and the European Commission have already discussed the new energy market directive, or what the actual name is, I can't recall, but one of the things that it regulates is access to grid, and it's also crucial in the context of energy communities because it regulates how households or individuals could share the energy in the microgrids in the community, and how then communities can have access to the largest grid, or in Estonian case, Elektrilevi. And this, how we will adopt this directive will make it much more simpler for energy communities. It makes the legal framework much more transparent and easier for them to start building this kind of microgrids and making sure that those microgrids are connected to the largest grids, and it will make their life much more easier. And the other thing is the pricing of the distribution service, or the service that Elektrilevi and Elering are providing for the consumers or producers. Because currently the challenge is that there is no. Basically, the challenge is that we are underinvesting in the distributed energy grid, and basically during the next 5 years, decades, the price we are paying for this service will increase, and it might sound bad for our budget and also for the future communities, but actually that's good, because then there is a much more economic incentives for them to actually start producing their energy in the community and using the self-produced energy in the community despite the high price of the distribution network price. So basically this will improve the situation or the environment, I guess.
I just wanted to say that to incentivize energy communities in Estonia, we need to make the business case better. So we need to raise the energy prices, and we need to create more energy deficits. And I know I was smirking by saying that, but I think this is the reality. We need to kind of push some communities into not we, but the kind of the overall situation has to push some communities to the corner in order for them to start moving, because Estonians start moving when it's already too late, and not like a day too late, but 2 weeks too late. So
thank you. But we have now reached the end of our discussion. So I ask all of you panelists to share your final thoughts. What to remember from, what is the most important thing to remember from today's discussion? Final words. Maybe Anelia, you can start.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad to be on your panel, and I really pity to not to be with you. But I'm so pleased to see that there are so good experts in Estonia on the energy communities, and indeed there are projects which are running on that. Because I agree with what you said, that the condition might still change, and some external incentives might improve the economic viability of the energy communities in the future. But what is important to have people or dialogues as the one which was organized today, more and more across the country, and make people aware about the opportunities, because it takes time. It takes time to really to make people understand the risks, the opportunities there, to prepare for that, to start to make a technical analysis for this. So I would really wish you to have more of these discussions in the future in Estonia. And I know you already do a lot. I mean, from both speakers, it was quite clear they are very involved in this topic. But we need to have it much more massive, really, to give the opportunity for more people to approach the topic and get the opportunity when it comes. So good wish with the energy communities in Estonia, and happy to exchange any good experience examples from my country, but also from across Central and East Europe, because Bankwatch Network, which I mentioned in the beginning, is monitoring good examples across the region. So yeah, if you need any examples of those, I'm happy to help.
Thank you very much.
I will take Anelia's encouragement with me, and also the fact that everybody has hope. And I know another fact that we are really actively contributing into educating our fellow Estonians in energy and the energy communities. So.
Just to add, basically, the thing is that all the technological solutions are there. Skills are there, knowledge is there, civil society is there. It's basically that we only have to act it and make it happen. So basically, step by step, we will reach there.
Thank you very much for those closing thoughts. And thank you, all of you in the audience who chose to participate in this discussion. So yes, thank you, Märt Masso, thank you, Joosep Veerme, thank you, Anelia Stefanova. And also the Opinion Festival team has asked us to provide feedback to the festival. You can do that on the Opinion Festival official site, arvamusfestival.ee/tagasiside if you're an Estonian. But yeah, you can look for the form on the website. Yes, and thank you.
Thank you all. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.